Now the second reason why I don't like the playoffs is it's drivers intentionally crashing. It's drivers intentionally crashing people. When this 16 style elimination format was introduced, we have been getting way more penalties. We have been getting way more penalties than we did than we did in the 10 driver 2004 than we did in 2004 when the original playoffs were first introduced. Only 10 drivers were in were in those playoffs. And before in the regular season championship, we have been getting less penalties in the regular season championship throughout 2007. But when the playoffs were first introduced, there has been way more penalties. There has been way more driver penalties. There have been more crew chief penalties. There has been more charter penalties, team penalties. The current penalty, that's okay. And the 2016 the 16 driver elimination format puts drivers in desperate situations that I think is dangerous for the sport. Look at the 2015 fall race at Talladega. NASCAR changed the rules. Where back then, before that race happened, from 2010, from 2010 all the way up to that point, they only had three overtime attempts. 3 attempts at a green white checkered at a green flag finish. But that fall race at Talladega in 2015, they were only allowed one attempt at a green flag finish. And the 2015 finish of that fall race at Talladega is considered to be one of the worst finishes in NASCAR history. When Kevin Harvick was out of power, Kevin Harvick was not at pace lap speed when the green flag came out. We're just two in the first overtime attempt. In that overtime attempt. And Kevin Harvick was completely out of power. He stalled out, couldn't get his car restarted. And then he intentionally crashed people. He intentionally ran into the 6 car Trevor Bayne, spinning him out, resulting in a big one, throwing out the race-ending caution, costing Dale Jr. a win costing NASCAR's most popular driver, Dale Earnhardt Jr. a sweep at Talladega, a win that he desperately needed to stay in the playoffs. Was stolen from him. A win that was clearly stolen from a driver who was so desperate to stay in the playoffs, intentionally causing the wreck, creating one of the worst finishes, not just in Talladega history, but in NASCAR history. The 2015. No, that's probably why the most popular driver getting screwed out of the playoffs in 2015 probably was why that finish is probably one of the worst finishes in history. And then 2020. And then 2020 when involving Kevin Harvick, intentionally wrecking Kyle Busch just to stay in the playoffs, and he dominated that year in 2020. And then in the same format, screwed him out of it. Screwed him out of his second championship. Screwed him out Tony Stewart's third championship as a team owner for Stewart-Haas Racing. And hadn't if Kevin Harvick had won that second championship, Tony Stewart's team would have not have to shut down after this season. They would have stayed open. They would have had stayed another season, hadn't if they not been screwed by this format. But the worst revenge, probably one of the reasons why Joey Logano was the most hated driver so far. And Joey Logano, he won 2 championships because he won 2 championships in this format. 2019 and 2018, I have to admit he deserved to win that championship because he had a great season. Because Joey Logano had a great season that year in 2018. But in 2023, I probably will say no. William Byron in the 24 had a great season that year. He had wins. He had a great season. He won races, and he had a lot of great finishes that season. And walks out with no championship. But what happened in 2015 was Joey Logano's feud with Matt Kenseth. Started at Kansas Speedway with just a handful of laps to go. Matt Kenseth was pretty much walking away with a win. Had that race won. The fall race at Kansas Speedway. Matt Kenseth was having a great season that year. And then in turn 1, Joey Logano intentionally spun out. Joey Logano intentionally spun out Matt Kenseth. Not by accident, he intentionally wrecked Matt Kenseth at Kansas. And walks away with a win. And that was clear. Joey Logano literally stole a win from Matt Kenseth. And Matt Kenseth really needed that win. And he needed a win at Talladega. Because he didn't win at Kansas. And then came that race at Martinsville. The 2015 race at Martinsville. But Matt Kenseth finally had enough of Joey Logano. Matt Kenseth went hard on Joey Logano. And he said if I can't win a championship, then Joey Logano doesn't need to win a championship either. And that's exactly what happened. Matt Kenseth had justification on Joey Logano by crashing him at Martinsville in the fall race at Martinsville, giving that win to Jeff Gordon. Which marks Jeff Gordon's last win, and it was given to him by Matt Kenseth. And Matt Kenseth and Jeff Gordon were rivals lately. They were rivals in 2006. And then Matt Kenseth actually gave him that win at Martinsville by wrecking Joey Logano. NASCAR, in the end, the fans were happy about it, but NASCAR was not. And they suspended Matt Kenseth for 2 races. Most likely the rest of that season. What I think Matt Kenseth did to Joey Logano, that was justified. But the coolest move that happened with Ross Chastain's Hell Melon happened at the same track, Martinsville Speedway. Ross Chastain on the last lap in the last two corners decided to ride the wall at Martinsville. Which, I admit, it was a really cool move. It was really cool move. It was most likely a video game move that Ross Chastain did. But drivers intentionally crashing people, Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace. Kyle Larson and Bubba Wallace, 2022. Fall race at Las Vegas. And yes, it was a playoff race at Las Vegas. When Kyle Larson was crashed by Bubba. Yeah, Kyle Larson was crashed by Bubba Wallace because Bubba Wallace was sent to the wall. Bubba Wallace had enough, and he intentionally crashed Kyle Larson at Las Vegas. Then a big fight broke out between Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson because of this format. Bubba Wallace was suspended. NASCAR was not happy with that fight and what Bubba Wallace did with Kyle Larson. They were not happy when Bubba Wallace crashed Kyle Larson. And they bopped Bubba Wallace, suspending him. Was that Bubba Wallace's fault? It wasn't Kyle Larson's fault either. It was because of this format. Because of this elimination style format. Because of the playoffs. The playoff system. The lack of legitimacy the playoffs put, and all the stress it puts on these drivers. Denny Hamlin even discussed about how messed up this format is. Now, I already discussed what happened at Richmond. I already discussed what happened with Austin Dillon and Joey Logano. And the way that Austin Dillon intentionally read Joey Logano, intentionally read Denny Hamlin just to get that win. The Roval, Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott butting heads against each other at the Charlotte Roval, and that track has got to go too. I mean, yes, I love the Charlotte. Yes, I love the Charlotte Road Coaster. Yes, I love the Charlotte Roval, and I know a lot of fans do too. But with the next gen car and the way it has been running in the intermediate tracks, the mile and halves, the way that it had ran at Kansas Speedway, the way it ran at Las Vegas. We need the fall, and we need the fall Charlotte race to return back to the oval. I mean, I like the Charlotte Roval, but we need that fall race. We need that Charlotte Oval race back in the schedule. The drivers intentionally wrecking people because of this format, because of the lack of legitimacy that this format has. Tells the point that this format is not working because it lacks legitimacy. The 2004 playoff format, the 2004 playoff format, yes, it was still the playoffs, but it didn't lack legitimacy like this format does. The Truck Series championship finale at Phoenix last season in 2023. Drivers intentionally crashing in that race at Phoenix International Race at Phoenix in the Truck Series. Was one of the worst champion, and many people and a lot of fans describe it as a complete crapshoot. One of the worst championship races in the history of that series. All because of drivers getting desperate because of this format. Because of this elimination style format.